Tuesday. Tonight is July 16th, 2019. We're ready for another session of Toolbox Tuesday. We've got a good one tonight, very popular. Tonight, Joanna Carley, our district training coordinator, will be presenting on, giving us information on Basecamp Manager. Thank you very much, Joanna. And since I am not a plethora of information on Basecamp Manager, I am just going to go ahead and turn it right over to Joanna. So please give us an air clap and welcome Joanna Carley.
And I will completely admit that I am not an expert in Basecamp management either. I have played around with it a little bit. I have had access to it for 16 days now. So we are all learning Pathways. We are all making our progress as we go through this. If people have information, if there are questions that come up and I don't know the answer, but you know the answer, please feel free to jump in with those as well. So what I'm going to do is start at the very beginning, of course, with going to our Toastmasters site. And I'm going to want to log in because as Basecamp Manager, or anytime you want to access Pathways, you need to let Toastmasters know who you are, right? So, oops, already messed it up.
Area, nobody is perfect.
Share. Hold on. I got excited. So already from the start, I've logged in. And you can either go to the Pathways section here, or what I've realized is a little bit faster and easier is I can just click on this welcome message up here, and it'll take me right to my Pathways information. It looks a little bit different if you go this way. You can always do the Pathways part and say, I want to go to Basecamp, and it will take you to the old traditional kind of version. So if you're doing it through this Pathways tab and through Basecamp, it's the middle section, access my path through Basecamp, and you can select your club. I only have one that I get to have Basecamp Manager access, so I could log in as Basecamp Manager. So if you want to, you can click in this way. Otherwise, you can always click on your welcome message. And again, I can select the club that I have access to. But if you go in this way, while it's faster, you can, you'll need to log in as Basecamp Manager. You just need to check the box for that. So there's two different ways here. You can go through the old Pathways version and say, I want to log in as Basecamp Manager, or you can click on the welcome. Either one will end up getting you to the same place. And either way, you need to select that you're doing Basecamp Manager for the club that you're choosing. Then, once you get in there, the real key for Basecamp Manager is there's two big tasks or two big capabilities that you have as a Basecamp Manager. Now, if you are VP of Education, you're probably the one who's going to be focused on both of those Basecamp Manager activities. If you are the secretary or the president, you'll have access to both of those activities, but you may not actually want or need to use both of them depending on what your VP of Education is doing. The reason I say that there's a difference there is because we, as VP of Education, we would always want to keep track of where people are making progress, where they're not making progress. That's the VP Education role. The task that the secretaries and presidents might be more likely to do is approve requests or approve progress in the levels. So they may not ever need to go into the member progress section. However, as we transition over this year from the legacy program into Pathways, I would encourage both the president and the VP of Education to understand how they can check where their group is at so they can identify who is maybe tentative about going into Pathways or who maybe needs some more help or support to get to that place. So I said there were two kind of main activities or two main tasks that are in Basecamp Manager. One of them is approving requests, and we'll touch on that one second, actually. The first one is checking in on member progress and understanding where members are at. So this is a place where we can have a better understanding of who's on Pathways in our club. If they are on Pathways, what is their progress level? And maybe identify where there are gaps or where there are opportunities to help people in our clubs to start to go online and start to get more comfortable with the Pathways sessions. As time goes on, if we think about when we have all the members of our club in the Pathways system, this will also help us start to look at our distinguished club plans and start to understand where each member is at any given point so that we can help to build who do we think will achieve this level or that level within the Toastmasters year as well. So if you have a second monitor and you want to click in and follow through, you certainly can while we're doing this. I'm going to go into the member progress, and I'm going to take a little look at my club's standings. I want to see if I can get rid of, much as I love to see all your beautiful pictures, you're in the way of my screen. So we'll start with individual progress. So one thing to remember is everything that's within this screen or everything within this section, that in order to see them the first time, you'll need to always go over to the right side to options and hit refresh. Now I've already pulled these up today, so they are already loading. Typically what it will say there is that there is no available data. I didn't make this user interface. I would never have put an extra step in there. I would have just made it automatically load. That isn't the case. So you'll always need to go in and hit options and refresh. And then it will refresh for you. And you can tell that it's in progress because it says refreshing now. So as you wait for that, and I can walk you through this grid because I know that this is already loaded for me, what this is telling me is that this many people has level 1 in progress. And the graphs are a little bit weird as well because they scale depending on your numbers. So this is truly just saying that one person is doing strategic relationships and one person is doing dynamic leadership. And those two are both in level 1. So you can even page down and see level 2, level 3, level 4, etc. So what I can tell you out of this entire screen is that my club has 2 people who are on level 1. There's one in dynamic leadership and one in strategic relationships. We have no club members in level 2. We have one club member that's in level 3, and we have no one in level 4 and no one in level 5. So what this tells me is that we have a lot of club members who haven't yet signed up for a Pathways path or haven't yet logged in to their Pathways and decided on a path. So this is a first good look, especially in the upcoming year, for presidents and VPs of education to start to understand where your club members are at and where those gaps might be in helping them get started on Pathways. This is ridiculously slow. It says that it's still refreshing, so I'm not sure that it will let me get into the details, but we'll try to do so. So in each of these, so in level 1, level 2, etc., there will be, if you mouse over it, there will be a little caret here that you can click on, and you can see the details, or you can export them to Excel. If I view the details, again, the graphing part is funny. I think if you had 15 people, it would be much easier to look at this and be able to read it, but it scales up to the number of people and we only have one signed up for each one. That doesn't tell me a ton, right? But if I scroll down a little bit, I can see on the bottom here that we've got one person signed up for dynamic leadership, and it's Gail. And she's registered, but she hasn't actually started the program. And then I can see there's one person doing strategic relationships. Again, it's Gail. She's registered, but she hasn't yet started the program. But this will help you start to see who's on Pathways and then maybe who isn't on Pathways as well. I know there's a bunch of data right here in the middle. You don't really need to know all of that. It's just telling you the filter that it calculated all of the information for.
Joanna, I don't think we're seeing what you're seeing. I'm still seeing the
Oh,
dynamic leadership and strategic relationships.
why, thank you for letting me know. That means we're sharing weird. All right. This one?
Now we can see it.
Seeing level 1 in progress?
Yes, we can. And we can see, if you scroll down, we'll see the detail below.
Okay, thank you for speaking up on that. So this is where there's some data in the middle. It's not really important to you and me. It's just the filter. But when you scroll down, you can see that one person, Gail, has activated dynamic leadership. She is registered. If it was in progress, if she had started doing it, it would already say or it would say, I think it says in progress at that point. And then we can also see that Gail has also signed up for strategic relationships and is registered for that path as well. One other thing to note on these details, there's a little hamburger menu up in the top right-hand corner. And in that one, you can show labels, print chart, or save this as an image. I genuinely don't have a reason why you would do those things, but in case that is important to you, you have the ability to do so. So,
Joanna, one question I have for you is the completion percentage isn't very useful, if I'm honest, because when you think of level 1, right, you've got what, 4 speeches and evaluations, so 5 items in total. But it really, when it says a percentage, it really doesn't say how many of those 5 items are completed. Is there a way we can do a suggestion to Toastmasters International to switch that to number of activities and how many? So like, for example, 5 activities to do in level 1, and if they've done 3 out of the 5, it shows 3 out of 5 versus a percentage.
absolutely. And actually, any member can call Toastmasters and provide that feedback, for sure. I haven't paid as much attention to the percents, but yes, what I notice is that when you're done with all the activities, but you haven't gotten it signed off on, I think it shows at like 80% at that point, and that is weird to me.
Yeah. It shows you whatever the percent complete is. So say there's 3 activities required and it's 2 projects and the approval of the level, it'll show you a percent complete that represents basically 2/3 complete. So it's a little misleading once you've submitted your level completion, even though you're done, but it won't be 100% complete until the level is marked approved.
Yeah, I find it just very hard from a VP of education standpoint to really know how far along in their path level they are by that percentage. It's just not very useful or added value in my mind.
And Michael, if you want to confirm, I think any of us can just call Toastmasters with those suggestions. Is that true?
That is correct. Any one of us can call Toastmasters International. Anyone who's a member, yeah, can call in with questions, comments, suggestions, so on. They're always looking for feedback on how to make things better and how to make things more user-friendly, so they can bring that up to the board so they can vote. Keep in mind, changes typically do not happen fast because there's so many processes it has to go through to implement a change. But the more information they have, or they can just simply send an email. That might even work. That might even work better because then it's documented and timestamped. If you don't have any Q&A to do with Toastmasters International, just send them an email, which then information can be found right on the Toastmasters International site. Send an email with any questions, comments, any comments or concerns that you have outside of what could be answered for the district, then they can handle that as well.
And maybe it's just me, but I think I'll send an email with that suggestion.
No, I don't actually use the % complete because I don't find it as useful as just looking at what I need to complete. Yeah, because it's off, right? It doesn't match with how we think about % complete, per Jessica's comment. So this is where I would suggest starting, especially if you know that not everyone in your club is up to speed on Pathways and has actually selected a path, is that individual progress section, because that will help you understand who has already signed up. If they have, how far along are they? If the person who's on the level 3 in progress, I'm less concerned about getting them onboarded to Pathways because it's clear they've made some progress already. The two showing up here with Gail with level 1 in progress, my question to her might be, what challenges are you running into? How can we help you get further along? How can we help you get through your icebreakers? Those sorts of questions. And for the people in my club who don't have any path selected, the question is more around, how do I help you get comfortable with Pathways? What are you running into? What can we do to help you along that path? So that's where I would start with that piece of it. And then you can progress on to things like path progress. So this is where it will start to give you information about things like what we already know, right? Is that 2 people have started their level 1 and that they've registered, but they're not actually in progress yet. And that's what this reflects. And then you can get into details about this. Again, if you go into the details, which I'm hoping it will share with you now, that it will give you, can you see the detailed screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So in this case, we can see there's somebody who's in progress on level 3, and then they probably don't need help getting started with Pathways. But think about 2 years from now, a year from now, when everyone is on Pathways, this report becomes extremely important in being able to understand where each club member is in terms of their path and in terms of what they want to complete by the end of the year. And again, that one also has a little hamburger menu where you can get into the details of it as well. The third report on here is path type. This is truly whether they're using manual or online delivery. So this might be useful for some of you. I think for a lot of VPs of education or even presidents or secretaries, I'm not sure that it's necessary to be able to look at this, but it probably does give you a base for understanding where your members are at. If you have a lot of people using the paper version of Pathways, maybe that influences how you run your meetings or how you set evaluations up. And then recently selected paths is exactly what it says. It's paths that members selected very recently within the past month. And so this is really helpful for us as we're thinking about that transition point, as well as for new members to make sure that they have, in fact, once they've started as a new member, that they have selected a pathway and gotten started with where they need to go. Lastly, we have external training requests. And this is covered in more detail in some of the training for Basecamp management. But external training really refers to those places where a Toastmaster may request from the VP of Education to approve something that they're doing as a project that is outside of a Toastmasters event. So you may choose to do a project through your work, and you may want to get credit for it within a Toastmasters level. And if that's the case, the VP of Education needs to be able to approve those projects, and then the person needs to still have their evaluation and turn it back in. And that's where the external training request comes into play. Questions on any of those so far?
Joanna, there was a question through chat that came directly to me.
Yeah.
Someone was asking if we could let them know where these reports are in the TI website. So if you could redirect us to where you got to that point.
Yep.
That would be great.
So we'll back up. blah, blah. Actually, I'm just going to go right back to toastmasters.org.
Do it. Start from square one.
Yep. So this assumes that you've logged in. So I can either click on my Welcome Joanna banner, or I can go to Pathways and then go to Basecamp. So if I do the Pathways, go to Basecamp, it's this middle section here, and you'll need to choose Login as Basecamp Manager.
Okay.
I'm a fan of the fancy little new shortcut that we just learned. So I click on my name up here and it says, hey, I want to go to Basecamp. Well, of course you do. But you got to click the box that says you want to be the Basecamp manager and make sure that you've selected the club that you're managing at that point.
Okay.
If you don't have access, so if you are a treasurer in a club, you will not be allowed to log in as Basecamp manager for that club.
Gotcha. And remind us of the opposite roles that are allowed to log in as Basecamp managers.
Yep. President, VP of Education, and Secretary.
There you go.
And then for either way, you'll end up on this page where you go into Basecamp Manager, and then Member Progress is where you get all of your report information. So this is essentially saying, help me understand where each of my members are and how they're progressing through Pathways. Other questions?
Any more questions for Joanna?
And we will move on to the other piece. And this is the piece that probably people are more thinking about when they think about Basecamp Manager. I will say that the member progress piece is just as important, and especially in the next year as we help all of our members get used to Pathways. But this pending requests piece is where we start to be able to approve member requests. However, I'm going to say this multiple times during the rest of the session. If you approve a request in here saying that somebody completed a level, that does not mean that TI will automatically credit them with finishing the level. You will still need to go into the old TI version where we typically would enter competent communicator, competent leader awards, etc. And you'll still need to also in there show that they have completed their level as well. So I'm going to repeat that now, and I'll repeat it again in a little bit. When you approve a level in Basecamp Manager, it's a completely different system. I know it looks similar for us to the Toastmasters site, but it's a completely different system, and it doesn't talk to the Toastmasters International site where we submit awards. So you'll need to submit the award in Toastmasters International and approve it in Basecamp. So let's walk through how we do that in Basecamp. We go into pending requests, and if there were requests out there, the VP of Education would receive an email letting them know that there's a request pending, and it would show up in this screen, and you would have the option to approve that level. It's actually not a lot more complicated than that, but where the complication comes in is that you still need to go back into Toastmasters International, back into, I think it's Club Central. This is where we submit our awards, or we historically have. We'll need to do this still, even though you have Pathways. And in Club Central, you'll still need to go into the club, and you'll still need to go into submitting education awards. For those of you who have done this for years and years and years, it's not any different than that. I will just make something up for now and say Harold is going to get a level, but we're not actually going to give him a level. And you can go in here and you can say, and you'll have this information based on what he has asked for approval in Pathways in the Basecamp Manager. So these are the ones that he has signed up for, and then you can go into that specific one and say, I'm going to approve his award for online effective coaching level 1. and you'll continue through the normal process within the TI website. So typically the process should be that you go into Pathways, into Basecamp Manager, and improve it in there first. And then you'll go into TI, and this is where TI will give the credit for it. And it's a pretty easy submission. As you can see, you can go right to review a Word submission. We're not going to do that. But it's fairly simple, but you need to make sure that you do it in both places in order for members to receive their full credit for those awards. That was my note for that one. What questions are there now?
This is Dawn. I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the old format, we used to have to input the names of the speeches, the date, all of that. Do you have to do that in this new one?
Nope.
Hooray.
I should, Jessica, maybe you can confirm. I'm fairly certain that you don't, but technically I've never actually submitted one.
It is correct that you do not. You actually simply select that from the drop-down, click Review Award Submittal, and you're done.
Okay.
So you don't put in any dates of completion, nor do you list the titles of projects or the dates that they were completed. It's selected from the drop-down, couple clicks, you're done.
Thanks, Jessica. Other questions? I definitely don't want to stay on that site.
I asked this in the written way. Do you think eventually these two things will be put together so you don't have to do both steps?
What I'd heard from Ben is no, because that learning management system is a completely different system than the TI website system. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a point. That would be one of the things that I would really advocate for, because it seems inefficient to me. But I think it's the cost of trying to make them talk to each other was too complex at the time.
And then there's the people using paper manuals.
Yeah, I mean, we'd always have to have that piece of it as well.
Yeah. Number of factors there. Maybe somewhere down the road, they would have this all integrated together, but it's probably once they replace the entire online system, which
I would think so. So paper manuals actually they get approved in Basecamp as well. I'm trying to remember. I just watched the tutorial earlier today, and there is a tutorial about how to submit the paper ones, but they get submitted in Basecamp as well. So they follow the same process for the most part as if it were online. And there's the whole Basecamp Manager tutorials. There's videos of all of these different pieces. When I watched the video today about submitting the paper ones, it actually seemed pretty intuitive, but how to get there initially, I don't think I would have realized on my own. So I would encourage people, if they're not sure, they can always just search. Oh, I think it was because you searched the person's name up here, actually. See if that works. Yes. So to submit I just remembered how to do it. To submit a paper one, you would go in and search for the person's name. And then, let me pull this out. Nope, that's not how to do it.
well, there's Gail.
There's Gail. Maybe ePortfolio. Somewhere in here. This was the part that I had to watch the video to understand how it worked, but you can submit your paper. The short version is you can submit your paper ones via the Basecamp Manager as well.
Okay.
Or that's how they should be supported.
So that you can monitor progress in Basecamp as well as.
She doesn't need to, but if I'm the VP, this is where it is. So if you go into transcript and you VP of Education, if she provides the paper evaluations and all the paperwork that she's done them, then you can go into the transcript, you can open the curriculum, and you mark it complete for them. And then you'll go through and approve it the way you would normally.
Oh, okay. So it is tracked on as well as.
Yeah. And all of that I just learned by watching the video once, and it was like a 3-minute video. And so it took me a minute to recall how I got back there again. It's a pretty simple process.
Awesome. Any other questions for Joanna?
Yeah, I do. I have a question. So for example, Gail, right? Gail's part of the club that you pulled up there, and she's also part of Toastmasters Club. So she's part of multiple clubs. So if she finishes a path, say in Toastmasters Club, but she wants to give the credit of that to the other club, is that okay? Or if you sign up for a path in that club, that credit goes just to that club. How does that work?
That is a great question. Thank you. She can choose where she wants to do it, and it doesn't have to be, you can even complete all of your speeches in one club until you get to the end and sign it over to the other. You can go back and forth. It kind of depends on, say, which club I'm going to do my next speech in. That's the one that I will assign that speech to, but then when I get to the end of the packet, then I end up deciding which club I give it to. So that's actually really similar to how it was when we were doing the legacy program. If you remember, we could finish a competent communicator manual and then decide that we're going to submit it for this club instead of this club if you're a member of more than one. And you can do that here as well within the Basecamp piece. The VP of Education doesn't get to make that decision. The member makes that decision.
And so is there a way or a report that the member can see what levels have been applied and haven't been applied anywhere? Or is that something that they have to keep track of themselves?
Maybe. Bear with me for a moment. We'll find out. Unless, Jessica, you know off the top of your head.
Well, if they've submitted everything in Club Central, you can view it in your educational awards, which is right where you're going.
Yep.
And when I switch the club that I want to submit my award for, before I process the level completion task, I have to change my home club when I log into Basecamp. So change my home club to the target club, do the level completion task and submittal, which will submit everything to the VPE.
Yes.
And then I kind of give them a heads up, you're looking for this path, just so that they know what they're looking for.
Yeah. So I'll walk through that again. I went there quickly just because I thought that was where I was going, I wasn't sure. So I went to my Welcome Joanna tab, and if you scroll down in this, it will give you a lot of information about yourself. Anything you possibly want to know. And you can go into your education awards, and it will let you know what you've submitted and which club it was submitted to. So I think, yeah, and it'll even give you the details of all the dates you've done for everything. I am long overdue for submitting some of my manuals, evidently. But this would, oh, so you know what's interesting? I have completed 2 levels. However, my VP Education didn't know how to submit in Basecamp, so it hasn't shown up in here yet. Because he only approved them in Pathways. So if they aren't showing up in here, that would be a good indication that they hadn't submitted them via TI.
There you go. So everyone check your profile. Make sure you got all your education points in.
Yeah, this is a great way for me to go back and.
If they have, your VP of Ed has not done that, direct them to this recorded video. Say, watch.
I'll be sending him the link to it.
Show you how to do it.
Other questions?
So I think that's a good education and maybe something to mention in the training too, that I guess every member coming close to the end of the year, checking this and just making sure that all the levels they completed has been applied somewhere, somehow.
Yep.
because this is really useful. You can't see this for other people. You can only see this for yourself, correct?
Correct. But yes, I didn't realize that I hadn't gotten credit from TI on either of mine, so until tonight.
But
So this is a way for
you
me
can see it. If you are a club officer, yes, you can see it for the entire roster of your club.
Well, you can for all of the awards?
You can't see all of the awards, but you can see what the Pathways awards are the ones that are most visible, so you can see what has been submitted in Pathways, because the maximum that have been submitted will show up on the roster for the member. So like mine doesn't show any of my legacy program awards anymore on my, like, the little string of letters that come after your name, but it shows SR4. So no matter which club that is looking at me, they can see what's been submitted.
I got some DTMs. There was some ALS and ALBs.
But you don't have
so
anybody
it'll just give
submitted.
you your most recent one. Sure.
Correct. It'll give you your most recent one.
Okay.
So yeah, well, so you could, this is where I'm starting to match up data. You could compare your Pathways progress reports in Basecamp Manager against your club roster to see if they match, to see if something hasn't been submitted in one but has in the other. Yeah, that's a good point. Other questions, comments?
Yeah, will you say that again, what you just said, Joanna?
Yes.
Thanks.
So you could compare this club roster information and compare that against the Basecamp, let me go back. The Basecamp reports about where your member progress has been.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were able to see how far each person in the individual progress and then went into the deeper details in this piece over here, sorry, not that one. This one, into the deeper details, so it would tell you who had made progress and how far. You could compare that against this club roster. And so if in here, it says, this is a great example, in here, my name, this one here is mine. So if I went into this details, it would show that it's Joanna Carley. And, stupid formatting. So here, it's showing that I'm on level 3 in progress. However, if I go to the roster for this, it shows me as a DTM and no level 3 at all.
Joanna, another way to do it in Leadership Central is to actually go to the admin reports below. Yes, so in there, if you scroll down a little bit.
In here, though?
Yep, so if you scroll down to the administrative reports, and then click on, if you scroll down, click on past and present education awards.
Brilliant.
That's where I usually go to find out. So if you sort by date, it will show, if you sort by date, it will show the latest awards that have been submitted.
Other way around. Yep.
That's where I go to.
Cool.
Did that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know about this report. Love it.
Yeah, it's a really nice.
That's why we like lots of people on the calls. We get lots of good positive.
Brilliant. Well, and especially with Pathways, right? I mean, this isn't necessarily Pathways, but there's a lot for us to learn yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of us know all the answers, so
Sure.
I like it.
Excellent. Any other questions or shares for the group? Smart people on the line tonight, so who would like to share or ask another question for Joanna or anyone else on the meeting tonight? righty. If no other questions, then I guess we can wrap up. I'd like to thank everyone who jumped on the call and participated tonight. Don, Jessica, Joe, Nancy, Susan, Terry, Joanna, thank you for presenting tonight. I apologize for the technical snafu. It was, doesn't really matter. I guess I was in charge of sending out the link, and I'm not awesome at that yet because I'm learning as well.
Learning opportunity.
Learning opportunity. I changed Zoom accounts in the middle of the email and stick the link there, and God knows where that link went to. I do apologize. It's an interesting day, special day today, July 16th. It would have been my grandmother's 93rd birthday today. Passed away a number of years back. She passed away, oddly enough, on the same day as George Carlin, which I think of two more opposite people than George Carlin and my grandmother. We're having very interesting conversations over coffee and tea. There's fun trivia for today. When did what does Michael's grandma have in common with George Carlin? Well, there it is. Completely irrelevant to tonight's meeting. Nonetheless, I hope everyone got some good information. This will be recorded and it'll be up on the website once I do a little bit of editing of